The argument of free speech and equal protection of the law for all citizens is re-entering the limelight. It centers around the debate of Confederate statues and whether the ones standing tall in public are racist or a symbol of American history. Now, this comes after recent efforts by the Trump administration to restore Confederate monuments that have been taken down, as well as restore Confederate names that have been removed from military bases.
Meanwhile, in North Carolina, a lawsuit is underway to remove or cover up an inscription from this Confederate statue outside the Tyrrell County Courthouse. The lawsuit was filed last year by the concerned citizens of Tyrrell County, a group made up primarily of older black residents. The inscription reads, quote, "In appreciation of our faithful slaves." The lawsuit argues that the term faithful slave constitutes racial discrimination in government speech, violating the 14th Amendment. Earlier this year, a U.S. judge ruled in part that the suit can move forward.
Joining us now, our Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes. Khalif, some important things to keep in mind here. This was part of statues going up post-Civil Wars. One went up in 1902. So writing something like "Our faithful slaves" at that point was viewed as saying something to reinforce what Jim Crow South had. So what is your take on this? Because you do have a balance between constitutional rights and what's protected by the state.
There are so many moving parts here, and then I'll make sure I'll deep dive into them quickly. I'm not a fan of rewriting history, so let me start there. But I want to make sure that history is accurately portrayed and told. And so we talk about these things. These things are called monuments. So let's look at the definition. A monument is a structure that was explicitly created to commemorate, that's the key word, a person or event. So let's look at how they define commemorate: a recall or show of respect or a celebration. Are we attempting to celebrate what these folks did during that time? Look at the title. Look at the description on this monument. It says, "In appreciation for a faithful slave." So look at one of the folks that were part of the lawsuit. She said she remembers being a child, walking up to that statue and saying, "Wow, can I really see these words in front of the courthouse?" Then as an adult, she says, reflecting even further, saying, "Can people that look like me expect justice when they walk into that courtroom with those words being there?" So when you talk about the history or the erasing of history, which Pete Hegseth has attempted to say when folks have talked about removing these types of things, it's not that folks want to remove history, it's that we just don't want to celebrate the darker parts of history. Make sure it's told, make sure it's remembered, but don't erect monuments or keep monuments there that pretend to make this seem like it wasn't something about racism and slavery, which it was. Because clearly the words there are talking and directing to a darker part of our history that folks tend to try to gloss over.
Khalif, we know there were a number of monuments that have already been disassembled, taken apart, dismantled here in North Carolina, but there clearly are still a lot up. The defendants here, the county officials, say the legislative immunity, they've got that 2015 monument protection law, restricts altering, removing public monuments. How many more are left, and what will it take for them all to be dismantled? I mean, is this just a long, long process, or is someone going to where are we with this?
It's kind of 2 steps forward, 15 steps back sometimes. In terms of the thought process that happened in the wake, and I could say the reemergence of civil rights pushes, early 2000s, mid 2000s, when those types of things occurred, you saw states, you saw the country recognizing that we have to address these issues that are happening here in our country, specifically with commemorating the past in a level that you wouldn't see anywhere else in the country. I'll address on that, or in the world, I should say. So I'll hit on that in a little bit, but so you saw a lot of these monuments come down. You saw a lot of on the military bases, the names were being changed, and so now you see a pushback to that. And so when you ask, well, how many are left? It's really, well, how many will stay? How many will be put back up? How many will be renamed? What Trump administration did was, we'll rename the bases, but we won't rename them after the original folks. We'll get similarly situated like named individuals. And so instead of someone like Robert E. Lee, that was the Confederate, hero for the Confederacy, you would get someone that was Robert E. Lee that was going for the Union. So getting people that had similar names so that you can get back to the legacy portion that Pete Hegseth talked about, but not, going back to those original names. So they still can call it that, but it have a different, foundation. I can say that we have to remember that if we're talking about in the Confederacy context, these folks took up arms against this country. Like no other time in history would you say that folks that were, traitors, that were going against what the country stood for, separated and divided and created a whole military to take down what we now stand for, you would say you would commemorate them in any other capacity. If we make the Nazi Germany analogy, I'd say nowhere in Germany will you see that they will have monuments commemorating what the Nazis did to the German or to the Jewish individuals. But now here in America, we can gloss over this like this is something that supports or reinforces or commemorates the history of folks that were fighting against this very country. So for me, the argument that this is something that should be supported by public dollars is a problem. And so then you have, in response to the removal, you have these laws like the Heritage Protection Act in our state, enacted in 2015, that now puts another roadblock in the way of folks attempting to try to ensure that these things are no longer in front of them when they go to court.
I think there's a right-wing party in Germany that would have a take on what you're saying there, Khalif. But I do want to talk about some other moves that we've seen, because we're looking at what's going on now in the Smithsonian and some of the objects that the Trump administration is saying, okay, is this part of our history? Should it not be removed? How tough is it when you're leaving this interpretation up to a government body or a court to decide, well, what is racist, what is not?
I mean, it's extremely hard. It will definitely be a case-by-case, judge-by-judge scenario, but I think you hit on it in the beginning. But the overwhelming majority of these monuments were erected during Jim Crow era, specifically what folks would historically call that lost cause era, the cause where you were trying to romanticize the Confederacy, attempting to rewrite exactly what was occurring, distancing the Confederacy in that entire movement away from slavery and closer to us fighting for states' rights. But we can't make a mistake about what occurred during that time, and that's why folks are fighting this fight to ensure that these types of things don't continue to stand, because there is no romanticizing about what occurred during that era.
All right, Khalif Rhodes, thank you for your insight. We'll have another topic with you coming up in about 20 or 30 minutes.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.